Welcome to Legend Makers, the podcast where education's true heroes take center stage.
Shine like a ray from the sun. There's something people look for but never can find.
All right, here we are. Another episode of the Legend Makers podcast. I am enjoying these. Sitting in front of me on Zoom is none other than Dustin Goldie. Dustin, I got your bio here. I'm going to read it real quick. Say hello, everybody, real quick.
Hey, everybody. How we doing? Thanks for having
Excellent.
me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. So you're 22 years in the education space. How you been doing this for 22 years?
22 years, and December will be the 23rd year that I'll be doing
Wow. And right now you're over at you're overseeing the Panther Success Program at Little Miami High School. That's a tier 2 alternative school in Ohio.
Yes, sir. So we have basically our students that are at risk that may not like the traditional high school setting. They come into the Panther Success Academy, and we give them an alternative pathway to graduation.
Excellent. And that is the Panther Success Academy. So it's alternative pathways, workforce development, those types of things.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. You've got an online graduation alliance coursework. You're a STEM advocate for at-risk students. So I guess that's all included. I saw some of your work there with the employability classes, teaching kids, working on cars and all kinds of cool stuff.
Yes, sir. Yep. Yeah,
you are also, go ahead.
Yeah, we believe that that STEM education is something that can be incorporated into every classroom, no matter what, whatever, it could be math, science. It could also be music and English, social studies. There's always an opportunity to put STEM into everything.
I agree. Yep. You sound like you and Chris Woods get along pretty well, huh?
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, I can tell right there. And you are a cattle farmer. You're the CEO of Goldie Beef. That's one of the largest freezer beef producers in Southwest Ohio. EatGoldieBeef.com. Huh? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so about 15 years ago, we started out with about 3 calves. And we said, my dad always raised them just for our family. And I said, Dad, whatever the secret recipe is that you're using to fix this beef, it's amazing. We got to take it on a big scale. And I started advertising and doing silly commercials with Facebook and stuff about advertising for Goldie Beef. And when COVID hit, we had a meat shortage, and a lot of folks started to scramble on where would they find their meat, and they realized that they could get their beef from local farmers and buy direct from local farmers. And our business exploded. We're one of the largest freezer beef producers in Southwest Ohio. We have anywhere from 5 to 10 steers go in per month, and we're blessed. And I'm just blessed to have 2 awesome professions, farming and education.
That's cool. And you believe that agriculture is a field rich in STEM. I mean, I think just being in the drone space, we know what drone technology in the precision agriculture models and what it's doing there. You're a huge advocate for STEM in agriculture. And I love your life philosophy. Let's get to the probably the entrepreneur in you is attack each day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. So there you are. There's your bio. Welcome to the Legend Makers podcast. I have a feeling you are one of those people that is a true legend maker. So
my 2 feet hit the ground every morning, and I'm blessed. And it beats the alternative, which is if your feet don't hit, then you're probably not here anymore. So each day's a blessing.
It is a blessing. You're right. And I think I just heard a quote the other day. I think it was attributed to Steve Jobs, this rainbow metaphor that he uses. Like you are like a rainbow, right? You spring up, you shine bright in the sky, you get your moment, and then you kind of disappear and you're gone. So you get this one shot. And I live like that. I take that to heart. And I think you probably do too. And that's attack each day, right? You get one shot.
Day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
Your students must love you. So here's what we do here. So we were talking a little bit before the pod. What I really want to do is, and I think this is going to be a great one for people, is we're trying to give back to the educator community. I'm relatively new to the world of education. I've only been doing what I do for 5 years, running Drone Legends. I was a terrible student. I was the student that, was probably going to end up in one of your classrooms. And sure enough, did. I went to a school in Maine called Hyde School, which was a character development school. I was pulled out of Fairfax County Public Schools when I was like 14. And I went up there for about 4 or 5 years. And that changed my life, right? I was not heading in a good trajectory. And so I assume you probably work with a lot of students that were probably a lot like me. And we had mentors up there that really helped us. And so, but I think back and I go, boy, it's not a profession I would have chosen. It seems like, it's selfless to want to do that for students. And today, now it is exactly what I like to do. And so I always like to understand, like, why? What made you get into education? What inspired you to start teaching and keeps you teaching?
I still remember the exact day and time. It was my sophomore year, 19. This will tell you how old I am. 1995, Blanchester High School. I had the absolute best teacher ever. His name was Jim Johnson, and I remember how he commanded a room. I remember how he treated people, and he had such a presence to him. I said, I want to be that guy one day. I want to be the guy that can come in and everyone is just so excited to see, because he made everyone around him better. And that guy, I call him on National Teacher Appreciation Day almost yearly to always thank him for how he treated us. He built relationships with kids before building relationships was cool. Back in those days, the teacher was supposed to teach, that they weren't supposed to get into personal lives of the kids, nor were you weren't supposed to share anything with them. They were the teacher, they were the authority. But Mr. Johnson, he let you know what he was doing on the weekend. He let you know what was going on. He would give you advice. That's why I got into the profession, because of him, and he made an influence on me that was such an impact. I wanted to be him. I still strive each day to be just like him.
That's so cool. I hear that. That's a recurrent theme, right? So you're trying to do for others what Mr. Johnson did for you, was to inspire you. And it takes that teacher to make an impact in your life, right? I mean, I have similar people that I think about in my world. When I grew up, there are certain people I can look back on and go, Mr. Milton did it for me. He was the guy that kind of inspired me. Some of my football coaches, my wrestling coaches in particular, some of those athletic coaches were really the people that inspired me and elevated me because of what they expected of me. To your point, didn't rule the classroom, ruled it with respect and commanded respect. And so, I appreciate that. And that's what keeps you going, huh? Those students, and you get students calling you. You've been doing this for 22 years. Do you get the ones that are you now Mr. Johnson to others?
Yeah, I instead of the phone calls, though, you get like a text message or a message on Facebook or something, and I get them all the time, and it's just a great feeling. And with Facebook and social media, you get to keep up with the kids' lives, and it's awesome. So I get them. They're in a different form than picking up the phone and calling or writing an old school handwritten letter. But I do, and it's very rewarding. It's why we do it.
Great, cool. And so tell me what are you doing at the Panther Success Academy? Like, what is a day like there? Like, what happens?
So what we're doing is, I can get on an entire subject about this, and you and I could have a 2-hour conversation. School needs to change. The traditional model of school has to change, or it's not going to be around in 10 to 15 years with artificial intelligence and drones and STEM education. So what we've done here is it's an online program, and our students come. We have an AM shift and a PM shift. AM shift is from 7 o'clock to 10:15. The students leave. And then the PM shift is from 11 o'clock to 2:15, and the PM kids come in at 11 o'clock, and they're two different shifts. It's half-day programs. So our kids have the opportunity to go work in the mornings or afternoons, and we incorporate workforce development into the program. They're here for three and a half hours, max, and they put the work in while they're here. So we're consolidating all of the, a short amount of time, microburst education, where we incorporated Graduation Alliance into the. They've been awesome partners. The students enjoy it. We've passed over 117 courses already, because when the kids come in, they know they're here to do their work, and then they're going to be going home, and it motivates them. It keeps them fresh, and we're constantly doing workforce development projects where we're going out changing cars. Car tires, or we're doing some power equipment stuff here in a few weeks where we're going to trim trees and stuff like that. We do a lot of fun stuff with them, and it's really to help our at-risk kids who, if they're in the traditional 7 bells, they're not making it because
Mm.
it's just tough for them. And it's tough for any kid in today's day and age to sit through the industrial revolution model of education where they're sitting in rows listening to the supervisor slash teacher lecture for 7 bells. So, that's a subject probably for a different time, but boy, we got
No,
to
that's great.
change the way we're doing things, or we're just so far behind.
And you're in high school, so you're doing
Yeah.
career connected. You're doing career pathway stuff. So what are some of the things? So you're doing some like mechanic. Maybe it sounds like auto mechanic. You're doing
Yeah.
some stuff. What else? What other kinds of fields are you guys introducing them to?
Well, we one of our real fun tours is Atrium Medical, and we've got a couple kids that want to be into nurses. So with our abbreviated schedule, we work with our local career center, and we're going to get a lot of our kids into what's known as the STNA program. They're going to walk out of high school with an STNA license, making $27 an hour at Otterbein, which is one of our business partners, Atrium Medical. It's the lower tier of the nursing profession, but they're getting a start. And what 18-year-old wouldn't want to make $26 an hour, living the
That's funny.
dream of what they want to do, and then they go and work. And Scott, they Atrium Medical or Otterbein, where they're working at, will pay for their schooling. So
They'll pay.
it's kind of like earning and learning at the same time. There's so many neat things out there right now.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, Dyson, I just was listening to his autobiography. He couldn't find the right kind of talent, so he opened up the Dyson University. Instead of students paying to go, they got paid to work.
Absolutely.
And it was huge, right? So these students were actually getting paid while they were training to be engineers. So
brilliant.
Cool.
Brilliant,
right? I mean, they're actually vested in, they're making money while they're doing it. They're learning amazing skills and talents that they're not only going to carry with them just from a trade perspective. Tell me about, I'm an entrepreneur. I love entrepreneur stuff. And you are too. You're a CEO of a company and you saw an opportunity. How do you talk to the kids about building businesses? I think today it's relatively easy. I will say that with a lot of air quotes around it. Certainly easier than it was maybe 20, 30 years ago to start a business and actually, because to your point, you just said something that speaks to me, right? You got on Facebook and you were in the right place. You leveraged all this new media. Yeah. That years ago, that kind of attention, you would have had to pay millions of dollars for. Absolutely. So it really was a high bar to entry, right? A high barrier to entry. Today, you can start a business and you can promote yourself on all these social platforms and gain attention. If you want
to reach kids, you start out each day talking about the side hustle. These kids love talking about side hustles. They all want to be influencers. Mm-hmm. They all want to own their own business. Now, for our generation, it blows our minds because, you ask them what they want to do. My own children, I got a couple kids that are working. They're working in construction, making good money. And he says, I don't think I want to do it. I'm like, well, what do you want to do? You're making $30 an hour. What more would you want? Well, I want to be an entrepreneur. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? But you know what? We need to understand it. All of these kids want to be entrepreneurs. They want to have a side hustle. And they're trying to be as creative as possible. And I think in this next generation, we're going to see some of the neatest creations and inventions because they all want to be creators. And I think that's where STEM education comes in, because we got to teach these kids how to problem solve and how to tackle different situations. And I think if we do that, I think, and we match the side hustle mentality with STEM education, the sky's the limit for this next generation. Wow. Yeah, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. Right. Those STEM disciplines, being able to think critically, being able to solve complex challenges. If you think about it in the context of business is just solving problems, right? Yeah. I mean, at the core of it, that's what businesses do. They solve problems, right? And so that's what STEM, the engineering design process is all about, finding solutions to existing problems, ideating, right? Thinking about this. And the reality is that my mother's generation and mine, even me, I'm on the cusp of, my gosh, I'm older than you, right? I mean, it's not something we thought about in high school, starting a business. Who even knew what the hell the word entrepreneur meant? Nobody. In my high school. Now,
And the older of us, the older generations can look at that and go, well, oh yeah, well, what do you mean entrepreneur? But the reality is that these kids do have options.
Right.
They can, my son's 19 years old. He's got a friend of his. He's making thousands of dollars a month flipping stuff on eBay.
Yeah.
So like there's ways to do non-traditional pathways into entrepreneurship, starting new things, the access to information. So you think about like what these kids have access to. I agree with you. You're going to see a generation, if we can inspire this generation to think like creators, you're going to see some really incredible stuff coming out. If you get that mindset right, coupled with some of the STEM disciplines along the lines of what you're doing. So that's really cool. I love that.
The mindset starts with our generation, though.
Yeah, doesn't it?
It starts with our generation, and we got to take our egos, we got to take our mentality of how we grew up and how things were when we were in school. We got to throw it out the window. We got to meet the kids where they're at right now.
Tell me a little bit more about that. So I thought you were going somewhere else, but I like what you just did. So talk to me, because here's what I thought you were going to say. This younger generation, hard people create good times. Good times create easy. Good people go. Hard people create good times. Good times create soft people. Soft people create hard times. I feel like and it's not a bad thing. I don't want to say this in the wrong way. I want to be very careful here, but there was a grittiness to growing up when we were younger. There was a little more of this, because life was, and I even go back to the boomers and even before that, it was a harder time of life. Things were just not as easy. You didn't have all of the technologies and things that we have today. Information wasn't as readily available. And so some of these newer generations get bashed for being softer, right? And so I thought you were going to talk about that mindset of grit it out, go hustle. The world doesn't owe you anything. You owe the world. These kinds of those kinds of things where I'm going. But I think you went somewhere else. I think you said, no, we need to kind of get rid of that whole bravado of we were the tough generation. So you went someplace that I wasn't expecting. And so I want to hear that.
What you and I experienced, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because it's their classroom. It's not our classroom. And I'm a big believer in if we meet them where they're at, it can change our mindsets as educators. It's hard. It's not easy. I still fall in the trap of, well, when I was a kid, we did it this way. But if we meet them where they're at and we listen to them, too many folks our age want to get into the grit part that you just talked about, that, we walked to school uphill both ways in the snow. We want to refer to that because that's all we know. Yeah. But if you meet the kids where they're at right now, every kid in my room will tell you they want to be an entrepreneur. Every one of them. That's all. They want to be an influencer. And why not jump on that and promote it and ask them, well, how do we get there? Show me, because I don't know. I want to see how somebody's going to be an influencer. I have a student, I'm not going to mention names, but I have a student that is making $10,000 a month from video games. Goes in, plays the video games, and tapes himself beating the game before anybody else can in the country. And he's got a patent on this website that he's created on YouTube. He makes $10,000 a month.
A month.
A month. That's big time. That's big time. That's at daily STEM type money. That's not my kind of money, but that's at daily STEM type money.
Yeah. I love what you just did there. That's great.
Oh yeah, I hope he hears that. Tell him he's got to hear
I'm making sure he does. That's great. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a good inside one.
We got to meet him. We got to promote them. We got to meet them where they're at.
Totally, it's amazing, right? That's what I get back to, the opportunities to. These kids have options. I was listening to another podcast the other day. This guy Gary Vaynerchuk, I don't know if you know Gary V, but he was talking about hiring and building culture. And he goes, "Look, this isn't when we grew up. You gotta. These kids, you need to create cultures where they want to be because they have options.
Oh yeah,
they can go make $10,000 a month doing Twitch video streams, starting their own website, patenting that. That's new to us. Yeah. That's the concept of that to a lot of people our age is mind blowing. I think it's awesome. I think it's the coolest thing. That's why I want kids to think about. I like the way you approach it of Just be curious. Learn how to do things. Learn how to fix and build and create and break down problems. And man, that coupled with access and the open form that these kids have to work, huge opportunities for them. Huge.
Absolutely.
Wow. You and I could go on that forever.
Oh, yeah.
I want to ask you another question that I think this is maybe a good segue is, so if I'm just starting out, I'm thinking about teaching, or I'm literally just started, I like learning from the masters, right? Like if I want to learn something, I try to read a bio on somebody who's done it or take a course. What would your recommendation be for them?
You got to learn how to wear a bunch of different hats besides just being a teacher. You have to be a mental health therapist. You have to be a parent. You have to be a nurse. You have to be a teacher. You have to be, I'm trying to think of everything else that goes on in a child's life. You have to be so many different things within the classroom to the current child that you have to embrace it, or you're going to burn out, and we're going to continue to see the mass exodus out of education that we're seeing right now. You have to be so much for these kids. You're a guidance counselor. You're everything for them. And if you don't embrace that, you're going to have a really, really hard time enjoying what you're doing. A lot of folks, all they want to do is say, I want to be a history teacher, and I just want to get up there and I want to talk about history. Well, I'm telling you right now, these kids are coming into our classes with access to technology. I'm telling you right now, ChatGPT is changing everything, and educators want to put their blinders on and pretend like it's still 1972, but it's changing everything. And you got to be prepared for how are you going to handle when you tell the kids you want them to write a term paper and they have it done in 2 seconds with ChatGPT. How are you going to use ChatGPT now in your classroom to further the experience? How are you going to get your kids to think about problems and solutions to the problems in the world? And instead of thinking about just total recall of matching or vocabulary or whatever it may be, that's where the STEM comes in. I don't care if you're English. I'll give you an example about STEM in an English class, okay? There was a company that why were they not retaining young talent and young workers and attracting high school kids for their job? Well, they came into an English class and they presented what their company was like. Then they invited the kids to come to their company and tour it. Well, the STEM part of it was the kids problem solving on how to improve the environment and the looks of the factory to attract the younger generation. Some of the suggestions were paint the walls brighter colors. Hey, boy, that's a novel idea, that nobody thought about. So instead of it looking like a dungeon. So, so that's STEM in the English course, by problem solving with workforce development in our local factories. We have to do things like that if you're going to come into education today and survive, because I know people don't like to hear this, but the phone I'm talking into right now, in many cases, they are the teacher now. These kids are so far advanced compared to what we were with all of their knowledge. They're 2 or 3, in some cases, 2 to 3 grade levels ahead of us and what you and I were. Then there would be the argument socially, maybe the kids are a little bit socially behind what we are because they're on their phones all the time. But I'm not going to go into those weeds. But these kids are so smart. You gotta want to learn with them, because the AI revolution's here right now, and I'm learning with them, just like you are too. We're learning with them. So you gotta want to learn with them, but make sure you're wearing a lot of different hats besides just being the teacher. There's so many things the kids need.
And I agree with you. And so if I'm starting out and I hear you say that and I go, woof, that sounds like quite a bit. Like, how do I even begin? What's it's always putting one foot in front of the other. Just get started as you're halfway done. But there's always resources. Do you have any great resources or tools or places where people can go to help further that with their own self-development, their own educator development?
Number one, I think it starts in the heart, and you lead with empathy. If you lead with empathy and you have an understanding for basic humans, and having compassion for human beings, if you lead with empathy with all of your students, you will understand how that'll help you build the relationships that you need to have a successful classroom. I'm a big Twitter guy. I think there's some of the neatest ideas. That's where I met my guy at Daily STEM. His I retweet his stuff. I'm on his stuff all the
Yeah,
time.
he's
I got
great.
so many neat ideas. I bought his book. I'll give him a plug for his book.
That's great.
It's so cool. But I've met so many great people on Twitter. Everyone's friendly. I've reached out to them, just kind of cold called people on the Messenger app, like, hey, I've been following your stuff. I'd love to talk to you sometime. And Twitter to me is where it's at for teachers. You can find out, and LinkedIn's really cool too for a lot of different types of projects and ideas that you can do. But man, lead with empathy, and just understand that these kids are going through a lot right now. They're going through a lot. Social media, holy cow, when we left school, we left it at the school. These kids are on their, TikTok and everything else, all in Snapchat.
Oh,
if they're getting bullied or whatever it may be, they're getting it at home too. So we just have to remember all those things. We got to turn it off. They don't. And that's
That's
tough.
right. It's on all day. It's 24/7.
Oh, 24/7.
It's got to be tough. It has to be tough. And if I heard you correctly, then finding your tribe, right? Going out and finding others that are inspirational to you. Like everybody can go follow you because we're going to link to all of your great socials here. They can follow you on Twitter. They can find you on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
They can find you around. So that's another recurring theme that I hear the more educators I speak with. And I don't think it's just specific to education. I think it's in any profession that if you want to learn, you find the people that are doing it.
Networking
And building the network, and maybe asking to sit in on a classroom or picking your brain for half an hour, which is hopefully what we're doing here.
Absolutely.
And then build that network and just learn from watching and speaking and asking for help. Usually people are pretty open to giving you that help and that assistance.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, very cool.
And just be a lifelong learner. Always want to learn from people, and lead with empathy. And attack each day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind, and you'll be fine.
I love it, God. I love it. This is great. All right. Last question for you. I mean, we could talk all day, but let me give you the questions and that'll open up some more. So, I mean, I think you touched on it, but optimism, you talk about this, attack that day with enthusiasm. So you're obviously an optimist. You have to have that kind of a mindset, right? You're looking at things glasses half full instead of, why me? Why not me? Right? Like this is all the way that we think. What are you excited? What makes you excited? What are you optimistic about as it relates to education? Like,
I love this question that you sent to me because it made me think, and I'm very, very optimistic about the revolutionizing of education. We talk for the last 40 years about how we're going to change it. That sitting in these rows, like the second industrial revolution is over. Okay. It's not the assembly line anymore. We have to change and revolutionize things. And I got a good friend, Dan Leffingwell. I encourage you to look him up on Twitter too. He always says we need to start saying how we need to prepare for the 22nd century because education is so slow to catch up sometimes. So if we say prepare for the 22nd century, maybe we'll speed up. We got to speed up for the betterment of our children in the education system. And I'm very excited about the next 10 years. AI is here to stay. It's not going anywhere, and it's only going to get faster, quicker, and better. And I think it's going to actually speed up education to where we are going to be able to tap into what these students are really good at with being influencers, wanting to be entrepreneurs. And the STEM part of it is really going to start coming in where we're going to start seeing other disciplines like English, social studies, music, art, whatever it may. Well, art's already a part of it, but I think that we're going to start seeing more problem solving built into the schools. And I think we're going to start seeing new customized schedules for individual learners. That's why I love this Panther Success Academy, because it's about the individual student. What are we doing for that kid? What are we doing for that individual? And we've got to start doing that all across the board, all around the nation, so we don't get left behind like it's 1943 again.
That's right. And it's doable. I mean, the thing is this, is that it's doable. It just takes some readjustments and some different ways of thinking. You know, what I love about you, and I want to say this in the most positive of light, because, you know, when we talk, I love hearing a guy, here I am watching you, and I absolutely love you for this. Like, cattle farmer, Midwest, hard hat, blue shirt, working with kids, farming, talking about AI and the fourth industrial revolution and the importance of reconfiguring education to focus. It's almost incongruent in a lot of people's minds. They're going to think that AI is, you know, sitting behind the desk with white collar and all that. And I love hearing you talk about it from a practical, you know, trades, workforce development, all this kind of way, in this perspective of this is it, this is where it's going. Who was it that just the other night was talking about farmers? People got to realize that it's high tech stuff, right?
Oh yeah,
it's ridiculously high tech, and it's still easy for the coastal cities to think that that big swath of land is still, you know, hillbilly bumpkin. And
it's not.
But right, it's high tech. Agriculture is so important. Try growing food, right? Try raising cattle.
Oh, yeah, well, let me tell you something. You're a big drone guy, obviously.
That's
Love
right.
the drones. I've got a drone, okay? Here I'm in the Midwest. I've got a drone. And whenever I have a cow that maybe's under the weather, has a hurt hoof or something like that, I use my drone to fly around to see how it's doing, so I don't have to go and walk out there to see where it's at and startle it or get near it and make it move more than it needs to. My little drone just goes over and hovers around, and I get all the data I need from my drone. So the drones are so awesome. Kids love them. You talk about, I'm getting fired up right now. You're getting me fired up about drones, okay? But the drones, they are so awesome. You could put them in any classroom. Yeah. It could be the lowest level at-risk students or your AP American history class. Throw a drone in and see what happens. Every kid goes crazy over it.
Yep, that was my experience. That's how I got into this. I was a drone guy. And around 2019, I'd worked in the pharmaceutical life science space all of my career. And so I was doing like publications planning, and I was on the marketing side and the medical affairs side of pharmaceuticals. And by my around 50 years old in, I was like, ooh, I'm not sure I love this anymore. And I think I did this all for the wrong reasons, to make a buck. And I was feeling, and I literally quit. A lot of reasons, but I quit my job. And I had the mindset that, hey, I can start a business today. And I went and got my FAA 107. I had been flying drones from 2015 as kind of a hobby. When I picked up, DJI hadn't even released the Phantom yet when I picked up drones. It wasn't even out yet.
You were a trendsetter before anybody knew it.
And then all of a sudden, boom, there's the Phantom. And I was like, I need to have that.
Yeah.
And then by 2019, here we are watching this boom in the commercial drone industry. And I literally was like, wait a minute, I don't have to work for these people anymore. I'm going to go start my own drone business. And I did that. And I learned a pretty interesting lesson through it. But what happened was, in the course of that, I was invited into a classroom to talk to a group of kids about drones. And I walked into this 5th grade classroom down here near Philadelphia, and the kids were all staring at me. And you're right. How? I had them. I had them like that. And I was such a messed up little kid that I remember in that moment thinking, holy man, if that had happened to me, if I could bring this into the classroom and gain that kind of attention, if somebody had inspired me like that, with all it took was this tool to show me, and then it doesn't hurt that there's all these awesome STEM applications for it, right? There's coding, there's engineering, there's the scientific component of it. It's a great STEM tool. And I saw that. And I agree with you. I've never seen, and the teachers that day were blown away too. They're like, what the heck did you just do? It was like you waved a magic wand and had everybody's attention.
Yeah.
So I agree with you 100%. It's amazing. See, I'll get
I want you to do me a favor. I'm a big agricultural guy. I love STEM. I love the drones. We gotta, when we talk about theme, we need the A to stand for the arts and agriculture, because agriculture is nothing but STEM education. Every time you walk out into a pasture field with cattle or a bean field, there's something going on with STEM learning. So STEAM, the A for agriculture, and the arts.
I love it. I love it, man. Dude, you are amazing. I could talk to you forever. You are on fire. You've got me inspired. I mean, look, so Dan, do me a favor when we're done here, because I want to link down to all of these guys. You're going to send me Dan's info where we can find
Dan
him on Twitter.
Leffingwell, he's the myth, the man, and the legend in the state of Ohio for STEM. He runs the Appalachian STEM Collaborative. I highly encourage you to look that up. He is the man. He's a good friend of mine. I've learned so much from him, and I couldn't go on this podcast without mentioning him. Just a great human being, and he will love you. You guys will hit it off. He's got to be on your show. I'm telling you, the guy is a rock star.
Set us up. We'll do it. Make the connection. We'll make it happen.
All right.
Dustin, any last words for people out there? You're super inspirational. I'm going to be mindful of your time because I told you we take about a half an hour, 40 minutes. What else have you got to say to people? Because I think this has been, every week I get to meet this is the gig right here. This is fun. I started with Chris was my first pod. And then I had Alethea, and I've had Daniela, and I've had Julie Maverick. I've had so many amazing people. Tomorrow, Ikua, we talked last week. She's going to blow people's minds. She's so cool. Yeah. And then This is amazing. So I get to meet the coolest people. So take us out with like a hurrah, right? Inspire me. I'm a teacher. I'm sitting there. I'm driving home, or I'm watching this on YouTube. What am I leaving with here today?
I want every educator out there that when they think innovate, if they want to be innovative, if they're sitting there thinking about an idea, if they think that they can revolutionize education, be the trendsetter, make it happen. Don't just sit on your idea. Push your administrators to make it happen, because you know what? At the end of the day, it's about the kids, okay? It's about the kids, and those kids, they're smart. Get away from all the stuff that they're lazy and they're smart. This is the smartest generation we've ever dealt with, and help them out. Fuel the flames of the entrepreneurship and the side hustle and all the stuff the influencer stuff. Flame that. Use that to your advantage in the classroom, and attack each day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
Oh,
woo!
All right. On that note, man, hey, it has been great to meet you. I'm going to click the stop button to stop recording. Hang on. We'll chat afterwards. But Dustin, this has been awesome. Thank you so much, man. Yeah. Take care, man. Thank you.